Please sit down. Stay where you are. If you move, you're in danger of being electrocuted.
Contact your control centre immediately to report unauthorised entry into a switch yard.
Right, we have an unauthorised access by 2 boys into the switch yard on the corner of North Avenue and Derby Street. Please contact the local electricity distributor in our location, please.
Never put your own life at risk by attempting to enter. Keep the intruder in the same spot and away from all electrical equipment. Wait for the supply authority to arrive with access keys to open the compound and release the intruder. There are many other types of equipment that carry or conduct electricity that can be hazardous. This is particularly the case in vehicle collisions when cars have veered off the road. Equipment used to distribute both high and low voltages are located in every suburb, and even low voltage equipment can create a hazard when struck by a vehicle. When attending accident scenes, undertake a hazard assessment of the area to ensure no other electrical hazards are present. The sad reality of emergency situations is that no matter how hard we try, lives can be lost. Under no circumstances go to the assistance of anyone who is electrocuted, even if the lives look dead. Secondary deaths often occur in an attempt to help an earlier victim. While a situation like this is extremely difficult, it is vital to keep clear until the power has been switched off and the all clear has been given. The aim of this video has been to provide emergency service personnel with a level of awareness about potential electrical hazards which can be encountered in emergency situations. Remember, every situation is different, and this video is only a guide to some of the possibilities. Recognizing the dangers of electricity in emergency situations could save your life. For further information on electrical safety, consult the Electrical Safety Handbook and the training notes accompanying this presentation.
Some little video that brings out quite a few interesting points, and it's something that you should have access before you even start your course. And my recommendation is to show it before you start your course. You can either show it in entirety, I showed you it's in entirety, or you can edit it and take out the bits and pieces pertinent only to your particular core business. Okay? So if you want to just do like SES things, that's fine. My belief is that you actually need to get everyone to see the whole thing, because the SES thing will turn up to just about everything, okay? We're going to turn up, even if it's like horses firing, to fire jobs. We're going to turn up to road accidents, even if it's just flying support and so on. And sometimes you might see their birth. One of the things that we used to do when we were doing road accident rescue in Canberra was a policy we had was when you arrived at an accident scene, even if there was people screaming in the car or something, the first thing you did was put your hands in your pockets and you walked around the vehicle from about 5 metres away. And the reason you did that was for all those sort of reasons that they were putting there. You were looking for hazards, and electrical hazards are not the only ones you find in road accident vehicles, there's also other things. So I believe the philosophy of putting your hands in your pockets and having a look around first is very good, because what's the point of rushing in to try and save someone and you end up with more casualties? In some ways, and I know this is very cruel, in some ways it's probably better to allow one person to die instead of 10. And we've got to be aware of this. And if you ever get into fine space rescue, that becomes a very big one as well. One other thing with the electrical thing, we've all seen these huge power towers that we've got crisscrossing our country. Big metal ones. Anybody ever climbed up one of those? There's a huge amount of voltage running through those. Once you get to this point here, which is often about 30 metres above the ground, and this point here is more often than not about 50. Once you get to that point there, there's so much power and electricity around that the hairs on your hair starts to actually tingle. If you keep climbing up and up these, there's ladders up these. If you keep climbing up them, at about 5 metres your hair stands up. So if you've got nice long hair, it stands up. Right? And if you go any further forward than that, and I've been told this by the people that work on them, if you go much further forward when your hair stands up, then you are likely to get one of those facial bursts on you. Go with your pride. And then you just fall to the ground. And we had an interesting case a few years ago in Canberra where this bunch of school kids were going to go and climb up one of these and all jump off together and commit suicide. There's 4 of them that ended in that. And one of them decided that she was going to beat them all to it and get all the notoriety and gazump all the mates. And she got to that point up here where her hair started to stand up and decided that she was a bit concerned about that, and suddenly decided that jumping off wasn't what she wanted to do, and she retreated back down to a point somewhere around here, which then left us with the problem of getting her down, which is not an easy problem, especially when you've got somebody that you know that wants to jump. You've got to first try and secure them, and then you've got to work out how to get them down safely. To do that job, we had to get the power turned off to the line, naturally enough, because we weren't going anywhere near them. And they turned them off about every kilometre. They can turn the power off and isolate it. So there was a kilometre spread either side of those that was turned off. And I think the cost came in at something like $20,000 for turning the power off to that small section for an hour that it took us to get it down. So it's a phenomenal cost. And it's very scary stuff being up there, because the thing about electricity is no matter how many times the, in this case it was Actu, reassure you that yes, the power's off, there's no worries, the whole time you're up there, you're going, what if the power comes back on? I can't see the power. How do I know the power's off?
Oh, it starts to crackle. That lovely crackling noise.
That's right.
What happened to the rest of them? What happened to the rest of them?
Oh, nothing, they just got spoken to at school. They all got counselled in the end. Maybe they should have been cancelled, but they all got counselled. They were, because she jumped first, they all missed out. But they just didn't end up jumping. So that's just, and you'll find these sort of problems.
Yes, you can walk under those lines with a fluorescent shield.
It lights up. And that's a good trick to do at night. The other thing is, if you go under there with your radios, you all know well how much your radios like going under there, and sometimes if you transmit, you'll get a bit of a static shock as well. Any comments on the video? Good, bad, indifferent? Yes.
Good noise. Yeah, talk that goes with it from the guy from the authority is also very good value. It gives you a good understanding of, in fact, how the system works. And some different pieces of it behind.
That's right. And that's right. If you're going to do that, and you can get someone in to talk, and you know there's a couple other units doing it close by, invite everybody around.
Explain the significance of loops and the way it works, and the fact that because the power line is down that way, doesn't mean that you can be sure that the power is dead in the other direction, things like that.
Exactly right.
Yeah, you can't tell where it's going to just by looking at the line.
And talking about substations, which you just brought up, wasn't there someone killed in gas recently or was working in Canberra recently in the substation. One of the workers got killed about 12 months ago. I'm pretty sure it was gas, and that was a case of he thought the power had been isolated at a certain point, walked between the conductors on the marked footpath and got that. So you don't have to be close to these things to get zapped. You can be away, and if it's wet, you can get zapped even more. In fact, I believe it's very dry, you can get zapped. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and let's make it only 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll just talk about some things in the with the assessment instrument, and then we'll have more reports. Sure, 4 pages. This is the last section I'll blow you with, and I'm going home and you're doing the rest of the weekend. No, I'll come back and check tomorrow. Okay, have we got everyone? We haven't got everyone. Then morning tea's going to be later. Okay, let's keep on. I just can't wait. You just can't wait. What I do now is quickly step through this and this and this. We haven't completely stepped through by more in detail. We'll come back and revisit and briefly more in detail, because I think it's important that we actually step through some of this stuff so that you know what's going on. Now, if you've all got a learner's guide, as long as this, you can at least share one. With these ones, these trainer's guides are pretty generic. Okay, so if you've got access to the trainer's guides for general rescue or any of the others, and you're looking for some of the ideas, a lot of the stuff that's regurgitated from the start of these is the same. So when you open up your trainer's guide, don't start to get totally and utterly frustrated by the amount of stuff that's in there. The introduction to all the trainer's guides is the same, and the introduction to all the trainer's guides is pretty much a regurgitation of your SGT in an abbreviated form. So it's going to tell you how you're going to use this guide. It takes you through and it talks about resources, modules, how many hours, and so on in it, which is very handy when you put your course together. So you'll find early on in the piece, it'll tell you how many hours that it's going to take to run a course. And they recommend here 8.5 hours to do a 12-hour course. so pretty much look it over in one day if you want to do the lot. It also explains to you how they'll complete the modules, right, so with the flowchart. And this flowchart's actually also in the training side. And then it goes through with your self-assessment checklist, explains those, and it explains the symbols. Now the symbols are important, and we'll come back to that when we're going through this one. Because that's how you can it gives you an overview of the assessment. Right? And it needs to be read with this. But if you don't have one of these as a trainer, that's fine. Okay? Because it does give you an idea of how the assessment's going to be done. It gives you a understanding of RCC and RPL and all that sort of stuff again. It talks to you about the assessment instruments, the assessment checklist, and then talks about competency records, talks about training notes, how you're going to put your training notes together, and we'll talk about that in a second. And a lot of this stuff you'll find when you start to read it is just a regurgitation, storm damage side of what you learned on your SGT. Then it gives you a little heads up on how you can do your teaching and your training, using videos, coaching, mentoring, classroom, all that sort of stuff. How they're going to learn, and how to be impartial, tactful, and tips about training. So this first section is reasonably generic to just about all the training guides that you've got. So if you've read it once, you pretty much can skim through it the next one you do. And all that is your SGT course guides down into a few pages. This part here is probably the most boring part of the whole course. But it's important that you have an understanding and you do actually sit down and look at these and read them at some stage. Because it breaks down everything. So if you're going to do your lesson preparation, and those of you who've done your SGTs, you'll remember how you had to make up these sheets. And what it does is it tells you what the criticals are, what you need for your lessons, and all that sort of stuff. So it's something that you need to sit down and have a look at, but you don't need to use it in great detail. It is a resource. It is not something to be slavishly followed. Okay? Because if you slavishly follow this, you will so convolute and bind your course up into nitpicking little things that you'll never get it finished. Okay? You've got to remember these things are guides. And then at the back, it's got a whole series of checklists, etc., and so on how to do various things. So a lot of the paperwork you need to generate is in this. If you've got to make up little tests and so on, it's in here. So have a look at that in detail the first time you're doing the course. If you're trying to work out, I'm going to do a lesson on shoring, have a visit to this and make sure that what you're doing on shoring is here and here relates back to the competencies that are laid out in here, in these things, so that you actually end up teaching the right material. Storm damage resource kit, the trainee section, that is the important part. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of critical things. Once again, their introduction is almost exactly the same as the introduction that you've already got here. It's almost word for word, page to page, the same. What I want you to do is turn up to the page that has all the fancy little symbols on it. These symbols you'll find throughout the whole course. And you need to take the students through those symbols and explain it to them. important to explain the symbols to them. So you've got your little climber with the backpack on, and that's an individual assessment activity. That means they do it. You don't do it as part of your training and wasting your training time in the unit. They go home and do that, and you need to check it. Okay? And you'll find in some of the ones that it's signed off, checked by yourself, or in other ones it's self-checked. There's the one where they're helping each other, the next one down, which is a group assessment activity. You need to assess them as a group working as a team. It will be an activity that can't be done as an individual. You've got another one which says more information. If it's a more information one, that means you've got to be prepared to give out more information. So you might have to go and do some more research. And the more information you'll find in references like this one, and like all those that we've looked at earlier on in this morning. Okay? You've got your checklist, and the checklist, when you're using the checklist, you need to be able to go through and tick those off. And you've got a take care, and that means there's a safety issue there. And if there's a safety issue there, you need to be very aware of what's going on. And keep a good an eye on it. You need to explain that to people so that when they're doing things through the manual, that they are very much aware of safety issues, what they can do themselves, what they need to do as a group, and so on. And once you start utilising it, you'll find that it's quite easy. The great thing about this book is if you look at it in detail, you'll find that it is largely a regurgitation of this one, with the ability for people to scribble on it. These are issues with individuals. It then becomes their responsibility to hang on to it, and it becomes their evidence that they've actually completed the course. Okay? So let's just take page 8 of number 2, building construction, where I've just turned up activity 2.2, which is an individual activity. And it says, using photos, pictures from activity 2.1, label the types of roofs. Describe how each one can be constructed. Okay. And they're the figures they're talking about. Yes, gone out, visited, yep, exactly like that. And then you go through and label roofs. The other way you can do it, if you don't want to do it as an individual activity and hand them out a sheet like that, you can go for a walk around the street. Okay? Like here, it's good. You can take the class out the front of the road here, you can walk them up down the street and say, what sort of roof's that? What sort of roof is it? Apron. Exactly right. And that makes it a lot more realistic to them than sitting in a classroom with overheads and so on doing things. So try to get them out of their seats as much as possible. How do you think you might be able to do something along those lines? Get them to visit some of that sort of stuff. Construction sites? Yes, go. Yes, you can do that as well. So what you've got to do is it might be just happen that you've got a house or a building going up just across the road from you, so you can go and look at the construction site. Or if you don't have that, you have to do some video and something. And the worst case, you just use some board. Or you take that video, which everybody constantly has got a copy of, and there's actually parts of that video you can do a freeze frame on and the TV, hit the pause button and say, now tell me about that. If you remember the Sydney Schools one where they had all the hailstones through the tiles and the picture from underneath where all the wiring was hanging there. Great pictures for discussing all that. So expand the brain, or even find the manhole and fall up into the manhole pit. Yes.
I haven't seen that video that when they built the monoflex shacks, they had a bit of space where the monoflex, using the monoflex to the drifts and the rubber there and all this rubbish.
I don't have a copy of it, I've seen it.
Yeah, they're working on the roof, something like that. It's been years since I've seen it, but those sort of covered like that.
Yes, that had a lot of different roofs and so on. Windows. Start going around the room and asking what sort of windows we've got. Aluminium sliding, but they're not aluminium sliding, are they? No, they're good. No, they're not. It's like that window in the doors.
Oh, no.
Right, they're fixed. So there's some of the things we do. These are set up quite logically, so we step through them from one point to the other. Right, tree operations tends to be at the back. And it was one of the problems with tree operations. That's what we want to do. What did most of you say here? You went and did? You went and did tree operations. Most of us have been out and done tree operations of some form. That's our regular storm damage, trees across roads and so on. Trees through roofs. So if you've got a storm damage course on and a job comes in about a tree across the road or a tree on a house or something, do you send an experienced crew out, or do you take everybody out? Take everyone, because what's the best learning environment?
What's the experience
On the job is one of the best learning environments. Okay. Within the book also, you'll find these sort of things. We've got to fill them in. My recommendation is wherever they've got to fill stuff in, you should as a trainer just have a quick scan. But you don't have to read everything and mark it, see that they're correct, but just make sure that it's done. Because when the assessor turns up, he's going to be looking for this, and what's the other piece of paper here? Correct. You're going to be looking for one of these, and these are the two things the assessor wants to see before he starts the assessment. And we'll talk about assessment very shortly. So we're happy with that. Are we all comfortable with these sheets? Yeah, but some of the sheets should be. We've done them to death at SGT courses. Right. Evidence summary sheet. This is the specific to general rescue. Right. On the back, there's a progressive learning record, which basically outlines each of the sections that you're supposed to have gone through. So with the general rescue, it's prepared for activity, and you as a trainer have to have that completed for the assessor, which tells them that all the bits are signed off. Now how you do that is up to you as a trainer. The assessor is going to find out whether there's problems or not. So that should be all signed off before they step forward for this checklist. That's all it is. So my recommendation is that when you start your course, you get a fistful of these and a fistful of these, and everybody gets one of these, and you hang on to all of these, trainer. And then as you finish sections and the people turn up, you can sign them off on this sheet, which gives you a running record of who's turned up when, and then you can immediately see who's got gaps and who hasn't. So if somebody doesn't turn up, and on that night you were doing ladders, let's say, they should have a blank in ladders, which is a indicator to you as a trainer that you might have to take them through ladders at some stage, or they've got to demonstrate to you that they can use ladders. You know, they might go painter and use ladders as we go.
Using the ladder.
Okay, questions so far on these? On this? And this? Question. questions at the moment. Stormwater assessments, you've all got a copy of them. They're all pretty much standard documents nowadays. The first page has the number of people. Now remember, when assessments are being done, we're doing group assessments. We're not doing individual assessments. The individuals are being assessed within the group, but the group is completing the task, which takes a lot of pressure off people. So if you've got somebody within the group who's not particularly strong in an area, they can still get through the assessment because the whole team can drag them through. These sheets for the assessors should be marked by exception. Right? So if there's a problem, the sheet gets marked rather than they just get marked anyway. Right? So comments are there for something that's done outstandingly well or extremely badly. If everything's just been done okay, you shouldn't have to make a comment. If it's satisfactory and it's competent, it's just ticked off. If it's not, then the assessor needs to make a comment. Right? And if the assessor makes a comment, you need to be aware of any comments it makes, because that reflects on you as a trainer. Well, it doesn't necessarily reflect on you as a trainer, but what it does is it should be a indicator to you that you may need to have to train more in one area than another area. Okay? So if your group goes through that's getting assessed and they're not doing, let's say they have all done poorly on the shoring, shore and door, you need to reassess how you did your training, because maybe you didn't do enough on shore and door. Maybe you just assumed that because it had all been done in general rescue that there wasn't a problem. And the other thing is, we talked about that. So all that goes there, and you can have more than one assessor. Okay, so if we've got a lot of people going through, often you'll have a bullring system going, and that's why you end up with more than one assessor, and the group takes the assessment sheet with them as they move from assessor to assessor, or it gets handed on, and there's a coordinating assessor, and that's what the ASWORKS is, right, is the coordinating assessor. So you need to be aware of those. Right, there's 4 areas that the assessment goes on in. So if you turn up to the second page, it has roof operations and shore and door. Roof operations is all the part that everybody goes rushing off to do, and you'll notice on the weekend I've actually put roof operations tomorrow, and I've devoted all of tomorrow to roof operations because it is one of the areas that we do more work on than anything else. So with the roof operations, you've got roof safety kit, you've got the ladders, you've got temporary roof repairs. It's broken into 3 sections, and each of those they have to do. Now with the assessment, there's a question that I'm going to pose to you. Do you have to supply a roof for people to be able to be assessed competent in setting up a roof safety kit? Why not?
Because it can be done I disagree with that, yes. It's a roof safety kit. You can't assume someone can lay that principle, but that can take application for what we're looking at, that can actually a real roof practice. I mean, yeah, you can do it in theory. I'll be more comfortable doing it on a roof.
That's correct. Now, both are right. Okay. You were going to say, Greg.
They'd relate better to if they've actually put it up over the headquarters and they can see what they relate it better than the diagram.
Okay. But be aware that if I come in as an assessor, I can actually, with roof safety kit, ask people to come in an individual at a time and show me how they're going to load the roof safety kit out to get them to load it out on the floor, and then I can ask the whole team to put it on the roof. And that's probably the best way to do it, because that takes in both, because then you've established as an assessor that everybody knows the principles behind all the stuff, and then as a group they can put it together. Because you've got to establish that people know the principles. As a training aid, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, we'll do it tomorrow, it is best if you teach them first with diagram and laying it out on the floor, and then go and put it on the roof. Okay? Because you don't get the overview that you want by just putting it on the roof. And people get tied up into little areas. So if you want people to have an overview, anchor point comes up to the centre. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so be aware that you need to use both of those. We'll discuss that tomorrow. And I'm going to leave the rest of roof operations to Ben. Shore and door, and that's what we're going to be playing with later on today, under sandbagging and pumping.
With your inexperienced crew that are doing their storm damage course, and that's your problem. The tree was straight and now it's leaning. What advice are you going to start pumping into your crew's brain? Everybody think of a way to do it. We'll all discuss it.
And then you pick the first one.
Yeah, and then you've got to think that you don't have chainsaws, right? Remembering that storm damage is not chainsaw operations, so you only have hand saws, bow saws, that sort of stuff, ropes, slings, etc. Is this beyond your capacity as a crew? Do you hand over to a chainsaw crew?
I know our crew, I'd say no, because we've got a couple of guys there that go stupid with hand saws. They'd be up there 3 so fast.
They go stupid with chainsaws?
No, hand saws.
With hand saws?
They'd be up there.
Yeah, okay.
They'd go up as far as they can.
How are you going to start dismantling that so you don't damage the shed?
No, just how you start with off the small ends, take it from the weight a bit.
Yeah, but how are you going to do it safely next to it?
Need to stabilise the tree first.
Stabilise the tree first, that's a good point.
You've got some props under here. You can probably prop and tie.
Yeah, I think Matt's suggestion is probably the best one. Remember what I said about put your hands in your pockets and walk around? Okay, you need to see everything from every perspective first.
Alternatively, this shed's long overdue for demolition. That's a fart shed, let alone.
It's heritage listed.
A car park shed. We're storing the panels in.
It's heritage listed, you're not allowed to modify it unless you have permission. Can we do this? As part of a storm damage course concept, can we do it? Yeah. Yeah, we've got 2 yeses. Any more yeses? Yeah.
Part of the storm damage is to prevent further damage, isn't it?
Yeah, so at what point do you sort this out to? Do we have to do a complete job?
Not necessarily.
Stabilise it, no.
You can stabilise it?
Stabilise it and holding out the trees.
That's right. And we Colin, the one with the dollar. Okay. Well, this particular one was leaning over onto a pergola, and once again it was soft ground, okay, which has helped cause it to lean. We had to dismantle a fence to be able to start cutting the branches down. We did all the cutting with bow saws. Once we'd taken the weight off the pergola, we stabilised it, and then we walked away and said, it's stabilised, it's not going to knock your pergola down, call a tree surgeon. Because to pull the rest of the tree down was to call a tree surgeon. So with this particular one here, let's say that that tree was standing upright, and it is now it's then been leant over to that position because of the storm. How are we going to resolve the problem satisfactorily so that we can walk away saying to the owner, time for a tree search?
Prop it up.
I've been looking at propping it up, looking at having walked around here and looked at what's available. We've got another tree up here which is the base of which could be a very good anchor point for rope. You could secure it so that it can't go further that way, prop it near the base, and possibly look at taking some of the branches off on this side to ease the weight of pulling it over. And that'd get, by the time you've done that, you should have gotten it off the shed and out of the media range.
How do people feel about that solution? That's quite a workable solution. And does that fit within our tree operation portfolio? That's right. If you had a crew full of chainsaw operators, you'll come up with a completely different solution because they'll take it down to stumps. Because that's the mentality of chainsaw operators.
We had a similar sort of thing in Campbelltown in January.
Yep.
It had been standing upright. It was about on an angle like that.
Yep.
It was threatening houses next door. It was in a backyard. Similar sort of distance from the house. We got a rope round the top of it. A couple of blokes on the rope to guide the fall of it. Chainsaw operator at the base.
Pull it round.
Pull the round it round.
Peter, you were
Luckily
going to
had
say?
a removable post on to pick that up and walked away with it.
What's that?
Next one's the same.
Ah, the other two is exactly the same. Yes, that's right. So we can, I mean, if you had chainsaw operators, this first branch here you can take off very easily. The one at the back is going to be a lot more complicated. But just for basic storm damage tree operation, pruning off some of the branches and propping it and tying it back, all we have to do. We're only here to remove the danger. The
Fairly reasonable sized one. Hadn't actually caused much damage to the house at that stage. It was still attached to the tree. More could have come off, so forth. So we just took care of the branch that separated, checked the rest of the tree, and in the end we said, well, you're going to have to probably take out the whole tree. We could see where the next one was going to come.
Yep.
And they got. It's a eucalypt, and it's the one down the bottom there. That's split nicely when I cut the big branch. That one there. No, they're Nikolai down the bottom of the veggie patch. Yeah, what was the veggie patch? Down next door.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're Nikolai. Yeah. These ones aren't Nikolai, they're something else. The one down the bottom here, more place here. I must do the branch, I think it's a Nikolai.
Right inside the driveway thing again. That's a Nikolai.
Yeah, we'll drop one from the house. No, there's not a brown scaly bar. Yeah, that one.
Carport there, which goes into the shed, which means the shed slide and that slide, right? So before we walk and there's underground power lines as well. So you need to keep your brain listen on those things as well.
Hey, listen, I didn't park under the tree.
Well, that's true.
Could I get Colin?
Well, actually, it's like one
Actually, talking about parking like that, when we do jobs, we normally park out on the road, don't we? Because if you'd park there, let's just extrapolate this a bit further. If you'd parked there and you started resolving that tree there, what have you done to your vehicle? Blocked yourself in.
You should take for trial.
Not really.
I'm thinking of kidney suburban now.
Well, sorry. You know, we've got to cut about 90% off this yard.
Stop making me come stupid. You need help today?
Got that all
Okay, any questions? Right, and you can do that. You can take people to any sort of tree and formulate any sort of problem. We've got this little shed down here with a tree with a branch hanging over. Give them a problem. How do I get the branch? Anything like that. I know the book suggests you training aids for your storm damage course and chainsaw course.
Until I cut it down.
Well, that better be
Oh,
part of
and
the
then that
chainsaw.
then become a disaster rescue course. Pull everything out of the shed.
This is a heritage.
Now, is that classified as a tree in your shire, or is it not?
No. It depends on which councillors you talk to.
Well, it really depends on which branch you're going to measure as the main trunk. Because it's 30 centimetres, 2 metres above the ground. Something like that.
No, you take the smallest.
So,
It's
only a
30
shrub.
centimetres, 2 metres above the ground.
Huh?
You said 30 centimetres. What's that?
I think it's 30 centimetres.
Oh, is that the
diameter.
free preservation order in the
Yeah.
ACT?
No, it's in gas as well.
Oh, right.
It's either 2 or 3 metres above the ground. It's got to be, if it's this fat, I think it's 3 metres above the ground, then it's a tree and you've got to get permission to do it. If not, you can cut it down. Cut it down to 3.
Even if
That
it's a
means you
baby
cut them
tree,
all down
it's
before they
not a
get too
tree
old.
until it's that
That's
3
true.
metres above the ground.
Did you get permission to cut those down on my property?
I didn't cut any trees down on your property. I don't have no cross cut my tree felling stick. I haven't got a cross cut.
Then it's less in itself, is there?
The power line and everything else?
Power line, the roof, you've got everything just in
Yeah.
there. And that's the Shire's building.
There you go.
And the build up of twigs and...
Oh, look at the gutter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grow a garden in that gutter.
Fire hazard as well.
Do they even use it shed anymore? Yeah.
Is that when you get erosion in your backyard, when you get heavy rain next door? Straight off there.
Demonstrating in a situation where you've got total enough control. Now the blue end is the headers.
Sticky end.
Well, there you go.
I just made a blue end up for you.
Okay. So your water
Water's coming that way?
coming from that direction.
Yep.
So you're laying your sandbags down. And these aren't good sized sandbags.
Oh, they'll do that.
Yeah, they'll do.
I'll just stick another one on the end there. You can stick a third one up.
In each row, you alternate the layers. So you've got your bottom row, they're the headers, must be facing the flow of the water, because if you have that row is the bottom row, the stretches, the water can actually get in underneath and lift the sandbags. and hold them.
Right. Okay, so the footers or the headers are facing the flow of the water.
I get the terminology.
Top or bottom?
Yeah, the
Headers are where the
Top.
sand goes in.
Top.
because the
Footers?
headers are also the bottom row, the row of sandbags that are.
No, they call them something else. They call them ledges and...
No, that's
Sorry, they call them stretches and headers.
yes, that's right. They're the headers that way,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and
right.
that's the stretches.
Yeah, it gets very confusing.
The top of the sandbag, the opening in the sandbag faces away from the flow of the water,
Yep.
and with the stretches, the side of the sandbag without the seam is up near the water. So the side that's got the seam on is also facing away.
Yep. Good. So when you're going to pack that up more, how are you going to keep going with that?
Okay, we'll put,
You're going to do a corner?
we'll do a corner. You use a sandbag that isn't quite as full as the others. And that one goes to, I think that's this one.
I love this, I just have to show them the video now.
That's great.
This is good.
Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
Oops! I did it again, baby. Yeah!
What led you through the hopelessly tangled underbrush of private security organizations to our door? Stellar word of mouth? Our fine client roster? Those flyers we put up in that public urinal?